So, how do you follow up with sales prospects without coming across as a total pest? How do you follow up with potential clients without just annoying them until they don't even want to, like until they put a filter on your emails and automatically send you to spam? I actually have a lot of experience in this area and I'd like to share experience from a couple different areas. But first, this video is coming as a response to a question that I got from one of my Breakthrough Marketing Secrets readers. Now, normally I answer these questions in the form of an article, but I'm experimenting a little bit with doing some videos, and so I hope that you enjoy it. I hope that you get a lot of value out of this video. So. The email that I got, the question that I got was, Roy, I just read your story in the Copywriter's Guide to Getting Paid about how you got your first freelance client. Just wanted to ask you something. Now, that story actually, sidebar comment, that story is how I actually sent a letter, and I give away the entire letter. Like I share it in the book. How I sent this letter to this client, and he turned around and he called me like on the spot, and he said, I got to hire you for this. So that's in the book, The Copywriter's Guide to Getting Paid. But I want to answer this question. He said, just wanted to ask you something. It's great David responded to your email at your first try, and you didn't need to follow up 1, 2, or 3 times like everyone else. But I would like to ask you, what's your advice about follow-up emails? I'm asking this because I started cold emailing today. Even though I think what you did is not a cold email because you've already talked to each other 3 months ago. Thanks, JD. So yeah, there was a comment in the book that actually it was not my first response, or it wasn't my first email with David, which actually is kind of instructive here. So with that, let me answer the questions. First off, let me actually share the lesson from the fact that he had to include this parenthetical comment at the end. I know this wasn't your first video or your first email. I know it wasn't a straight cold email. Well, what this was actually a follow-up email. So my initial emails didn't get responded to, didn't get me the project that I was hoping to get from the client. And so I sent one that was even bigger, like that made more of a splash, that couldn't be ignored. And actually that one was, it was what I call an irresistible offer, because I actually offered to David, again, you can read the letter, but I offered to David, hey, you are an expert on marketing testing. I would like to test my message against your message that you're currently using to sell this program on marketing testing. What I'd like to do is I would like to write the message. And if you don't like the message, you don't have to test it. If you do like the message, you can test it without paying me. And only after you've tested it and it does better than your current message, do you actually have to pay me the amount that I asked in this letter. So I made it a completely risk-free proposition, an irresistible offer, that he was either going to not pay me or he was going to get a marketing message that performed better than what he was running at the time. And that was a follow-up email because he hadn't replied to my previous one. Now that's actually not necessarily, I think what happened there was I recognized that my initial efforts had been really weak. I hadn't done a great job of selling him up front. And so what I did in that moment was I gave him a better offer. And that's actually a great way to follow up without being a pest, is saying, listen, I didn't do a good enough job of making an impact previously. And so here's what I want to do for you, so that you can recognize the value of my product or service and will then invest in it, right? So that's one thing that you can do. Now, on the other side of it, let's assume that you did do a good job, like they understand your product or service. So I used to sell IT training. Actually, at the time I was getting my first freelance clients, I was selling IT training. And one of the things that we did was we sold these big training packages, very expensive. You could either buy like permanent access for $30,000, or there were some subscriptions that were thousands of dollars per year if you were training a staff. And so I was selling these, and I kind of straddled the marketing and sales department during the course of that job. And for a while, I was just selling it. Like I was just a sales guy. on the phone talking to clients. And I would have an initial conversation with these clients. I would figure out with them, we called it a training consultation. I would figure out with them what their training needs were and if one of our solutions was an ideal solution compared to everything else available in the market to them. So I would have that conversation with them, and that's where we really get into really wanting to invest in follow-up, because I had a $30,000 sale on the line and I wanted to close that deal. And for the most part, it would take weeks or months to close that deal. Sometimes you'd be talking to somebody in December and they're on a government budget that is on the calendar year, where the budget year ends in September. And you have 10 months that you're going to have to stay on their radar before they're actually able to close it using whatever is part of their training budget and available in September of the following year. So I would do something that a good reference here is Fibonacci numbers. You don't have to follow the Fibonacci numbers exactly, but I call it Fibonacci follow-up because it really underscores the idea behind it. So I don't know if you know the Fibonacci numbers, but basically what you do is you start with 1 and 1, and then you add the previous two numbers to make the next one. So 1 plus 1 is 2. And then you have 2 and 1. 2 plus 1 is 3. 3 and 2. 3 plus 2 is 5. 5 and 3. 5 plus 3 is 8. And so what happens is you get these bigger and bigger and bigger spaces between numbers. And it's a pattern that shows up all over in nature, and you may be familiar with it from that or from stock investing, or it shows up in lots of places, right? So it also can show up in email follow-up. Basically, every time that I interact with someone, it resets. So if I interact with you, if you reply to my email, I'm going to reply the next day, or I'm going to send a follow-up a day after. So you reply to me, and then I send you an email in reply to that. And then a day later, I'm going to check in again. And then I'm going to give it a couple days, and I'm going to check in again. And then I'm going to give it a few more days, and I'm going to check in again. And then I'm going to get on this cycle where it's like every week I'm going to interact with you a little bit. And then maybe every couple weeks if you're not replying to a lot. And then the longest that I'll let it go in terms of follow-up is every 3 weeks. If I actually believe somebody is a decent prospect, and I'm going to keep following up every 3 weeks, as long as they don't tell me yes or no. Now, if they say no, okay, thanks, moving on. If they say yes, of course, then that changes the entire relationship, right? But until I have a clear yes or no, I'm going to keep following up, and I'm going to follow up using this pattern where the more recently they've replied to me, the more frequently they're going to get response, or they're going to get follow-up from me. And it's going to be, using the language of Dean Jackson, it's going to be short, personal, and expecting reply emails. So something like, hey, did you get a chance to think about what we talked about yesterday? Do you have any further questions? Really short, personal, expecting reply. It's asking them a question, asking them to answer the question in a follow-up email. Or regarding our conversation yesterday, I think it would be a good idea to move forward before the new year. Would you like me to draft an agreement for you? Something like that. Like, I'm just making these things up off the top of my head because that's what I always do. They're so short. You don't have to invest a ton of time in follow-up emails. If you've had the initial conversation, the initial contact, do what it's supposed to do as far as presenting your value proposition, presenting why they should be interested in you, maybe having a conversation with them about how their needs are a fit for your services, how their problem can be solved through your solution, through your offer. Then all that you really need to do is stay on their radar and keep coming up, giving them opportunities to respond. And so Fibonacci follow-up is sending out messages relative to how recently you've had meaningful interaction with them. So if they call you, they're going to get kind of reset in there. And I would use Salesforce. Any kind of CRM that will give you notifications. You could even do it in a calendar. Like, there's how you do that is not important. Just that the principle applies that the more recently that you've had a good interaction with them, the more frequently you should be following up. And when it's been a while since they've responded to anything, then you just send things every 3 weeks or so to stay on their radar. And what do you send? You send things that are short, personal, and expecting reply. And then there's a principle that dictates your attitude, that defines the attitude that you're going to have with this. Now, it's really easy for a salesperson, or if you're selling your services, to get kind of frustrated with a prospect who's not responding. At some point, like, you can't be emotionally invested in closing any specific detail or any specific deal. And the earlier you get to that state where, hey, this may be the perfect client for me, but if I don't close the deal, I'm going to be fine with that. I'm going to line up 5 other clients behind them. And so one of those is going to close and we're going to be good. So when you are at that state, then if you can be kind, be smart, and be human, it's very easy to send these messages that will be well received by your prospects. So be kind. Like, don't be an idiot. Maybe idiot is response to be smart. Don't be mean to them because they're not responding. Don't be rude to them because they're not responding. Treat them like a fellow human being. Treat them well. Say, hey, I don't know, maybe my emails are going to your some folder or whatever. Maybe you're missing them. I just want to know if this is still something that's interesting and relevant to you. Like, that's just kind. It's just, I'm being a good person to you because I think that I have something that is of value to you. And for whatever reason, we're missing, like we're not connecting. And so I send follow-up that says, hey, is there anything that I can do to help you here? I know that you were pushing this forward to purchasing. Is there anything that I can do on your behalf to help move this through the purchasing process so you don't have to worry about it? Like, these are the types of emails that I would send all the time, completely relevant to the specific situation, to the specific, whatever the prospect had told me. If they say, hey, I've pushed this to purchasing, but that's like a 60-day process. Well, then for the next 60 days, for the next 90 days, if the order hasn't come through, I'm going to be following up with them relevant to that and saying, hey, I know it can be a pain waiting for purchasing to get through. Did they need anything else from you? Did they need anything from me? Can I help you? Like, this is how to follow up like a freaking human being, right? Be smart. The reason that I put be smart there is because you want to write down like what you say or have some record of what you said to the different clients. And so if I emailed somebody a week ago about purchasing or they had emailed me previously about purchasing, then I'm going to want to make sure that I'm talking about that in my follow-up emails versus like, if they were confused about how the licensing worked and I sent them an explanation and then they never replied to that, well, then my follow-ups might be about licensing and did you have any other questions about how that works or how this can work with your department? Like, things like that. Selling whatever service it is, your follow-up should be relevant to the conversations that you've already had with them. That's just smart, like, conversational ability. And it's also super smart for selling in terms of following up. The example of getting my first copywriting client and having that irresistible offer, that was an example of smart follow-up because I said, listen, I clearly didn't do enough to make the impact that I was hoping to make with my previous emails to you. And so I would like to do something much bigger to get on your radar here. And it worked. It got them on the phone within minutes, right? And then be human is like, recognize that there's a human being on the other end of the conversation. They don't want to be pestered. You wouldn't want to be pestered if the roles were reversed. Like, treat them like a human being, treat them well, treat them like you want to be treated. And what you'll find is that even if you get no's, they won't feel as bad because these people aren't going to be rejecting you for your pushy sales tactics. They're going to be saying, oh, you know what? I'm really sorry, but this just isn't a fit for me. Like, I send out a ton of emails, right? And I recently ran this successful campaign that got a whole bunch of new subscribers on my list. But I also recognized at the time that these people were like joining my list because of one very specific offer. And that probably meant that quite a few of them would not resonate quite as much with the frequency of emails that I was putting out. And so I'm getting all of these emails back saying, hey, this seems like good content, but I really just like this isn't a fit for me, right? And I'm fine with that, right? And it's because that I treat my readers like a human being. I treat my subscribers like a human being. I'm looking out for their best interest, because I know that in the long run, that's good for me as a human being too, if we're all looking out for each other's best interests. And this might feel a little bit squishy in terms of how to follow up without being a pest. And like, I'm not giving you the number strategy and the short personal expecting reply. Those are kind of tactical. They're kind of straightforward. I'm not telling you like what words to put in there, whatever, but like this squishy stuff is actually what matters most, because you are ultimately connecting with a human being who has to make an emotional decision about making a purchase from you, whether it's a product, a service, whatever. And the more that you can treat them like a human being that you're trying to give value to, whose problem you're trying to solve with your product, your service, you're offering, like that's what's going to resonate with them and make them at least start the conversation again, at least tell you no, as opposed to just deleting your emails, or tell you yes if it has been a fit and for whatever reason they hadn't moved forward yet. So with that, I hope this has been valuable to you. If it has, click that like button under the video so that the algorithm gods will know to share the video with other people like you who would get value out of it. Comment, share below if you have any questions that you would like to have me answer, either if I can answer them really quick in a comment or in a future video like this. Leave those in the comments. Share the video with other people who might find it valuable, especially other people who are involved in selling, whether that's in your business or connected to your business. And be sure you subscribe. You can subscribe, you can subscribe on YouTube. You can go to breakthroughmarketingsecrets.com and get my daily emails as well, where I publish articles as well as videos covering marketing, copywriting, direct response, business building, selling, personal development, and a whole lot more. And, frankly, I'm on a mission to help as many copywriters, entrepreneurs, other high achievers live happier, healthier, more prosperous, and impactful lives. And I would love to have you join me in that mission through subscribing, so that we can just continue to move the world forward with doing good work, doing good for ourselves, doing well for ourselves, and doing good in the world, right? Through our messaging and through our marketing and through getting our valuable products and services into the hands of as many people as possible. So with that, I'm Roy Furr. This has been a video issue of Breakthrough Marketing Secrets, and I look forward to seeing you again in your next video. See you later.